Hello, this is Wmpyr here to talk about 52 blocks. Now, please keep in mind, I am not an expert in 52 blocks. I don't even practice it, okay? I got a comment on my Twitter, and this person asked me about 52 blocks, and yeah, so that's the reason why I'm making this video. Now, 52 blocks is something that I have seen on YouTube. I have never cross-trained with someone in person that knew it, okay? Or if they did, they were just studying it on their own. Nothing to where we could say that they were an expert on it and I could really do some intensive cross-training. No, I've never done that. So I just want to make that very, very clear. And everything that I know about 52 blocks, which is not much, is stuff that I've just seen on YouTube and online. Okay. So to me, the style is very interesting. You know, it is, the idea here is that it is a very street effective style because it's born on the streets, is born in prison, born in the streets, born in the poor neighborhoods, the ghettos, where you're going to see a lot of violence and a lot of action. That's what makes 52 blocks very the I don't want to say catchphrase, but that's what makes it suitable and relevant and effective for today's world of self-defense, is because it's been used in the streets, it's been used in dangerous in situations of today's urban environment, not 500 years ago on an ancient battlefield. No, we're talking about on the streets, from the 70s or 80s or 60s or 50s. That's what we're talking about here. So anyway, one of the things that has always blown me away is the razor blade thing. One of the street moves that they said I saw in an interview was, they said they would hide a razor blade in their mouth and then they would spit it out at the opponent, which is, obviously if you spit at me, I'm already going to be like, whoa, what the hell? But you spit a razor blade at me, that's even scarier. That's even worse, right? But how do you even do that? How do you even practice that, to secretly hide a razor blade in your mouth? What, do you carry one all day? It just blows my mind. I can't even imagine that. I would never do that. It's crazy to think about. But then I've seen in an interview where Hulk Hogan talks about having a razor blade in his mouth. Now I know there has been like, for example, Jim Cornette, who I really enjoy watching his YouTube videos. But Jim Cornette, he has said that Hulk Hogan, let's say, put it nicely, exaggerates a lot. So, but I don't know. Hulk Hogan says that he had a piece of a razor blade in his mouth. And I mean, we're talking about, the guy is much, much bigger than me. So I mean, his skull, the inside of his mouth's going to have a lot more room than me, but I still I can't imagine. And a piece of a razor blade makes more sense than a full razor blade. A piece of a razor blade and then with some duct tape on it, but still, so you could hold it in your teeth, but he's getting body slammed, he's getting thrown across the ropes. I just can't imagine having a razor blade in your mouth while you're doing all that. But anyway, I digress. It's just something that I have no idea about. It's just when I heard it from a 52 Blocks interview, I went, what? It's one of those things. But okay, so when I look at 52 blocks, I see a lot of similarities with Heaven 6, right? Filipino martial arts, Kia, Kali, Escrima, Arnis. One of our premier techniques is the Heaven 6, and or some form of variation of that. And when you see 52 blocks, they're doing a lot of stuff with their hands. And they say it's to confuse the opponent, distract the opponent. But then there's other schools of thought where they say, no, this is just we're just learning the techniques. We don't actually fight that way. Are you crazy? You're not going to open yourself up like that. No. So I don't know. I am not authority enough to argue any of that. So I don't know. But for those people that want to learn something like 52 blocks and you're having trouble with a rhythm, you say, like me personally, I'm a terrible dancer. I have terrible rhythm. So when it comes to certain styles that require rhythm, like 52 blocks or like capoeira, where it has a lot, has like dance mixed in with it to disguise it. For something like that, the Kia, the Heaven Six for me works nice. The Filipino martial arts rhythm, with the Heaven Six, with the tapping of the sticks, that when you're doing the Heaven Six, you hear the sticks tap with a partner, and that the ta 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 ta, that is much more basic, much more simpler, easier for me to understand, and it's plenty complicated. And from here, I could easily break free, go into all kinds of other stuff, and I am not. My brain is not doing what I see the guys at like 52 blocks are doing, but I feel like we're doing something similar. But the way going around about it, the Heaven Six figure eight pattern based motion is a lot simpler for me to understand than getting a bunch of techniques and putting it together and making poetry, which those guys do, which is amazing. But for me, just working on figure eight and then breaking that down, and because we have like, so from this Heaven Six, this has the motion to create momentum, as you can see, like for a hammer fist or a ice pick grip knife stab, for power. Or I could use this, as you can see, rather than power to stab, I could use it for catching, so I can hug it back to my body and catch stuff. Or if you gotta close, you gotta open to continue the motion. So we close, but then you can, when you make that motion, that's when I could make my cut, or that's when I could angle off into a 45-degree angle and get out of there. So there's different usages within there, and then so the techniques are they're already like put in there. You kind of have to discover it on your own. But anyway, I'm just saying, for me personally, that was just easy. It's easier for me to learn. Like when I have seen like some kung fu styles, and I've seen some Japanese karate styles, and taekwondo, Korean taekwondo systems and stuff, and they got tons of forms. My brain was not geared for that. I'm not good at that, but being able to just pick up this motion like the Heaven Six and Heaven and Earth and Reverse Heaven Six and all the different millions of variations, that just resonates with me much, much better. So, that's different people's different ways of learning. But, I just wanted to mention that. But I ultimately, I still feel like we're doing something similar. Now, the thing is, why is it similar? And I was thinking about that. And 52 blocks, I think, is because, when you're talking about poverty, the ghettos and stuff, and this is whether, it is in the ghettos, or you're talking about like in Mexico and stuff, a lot of good boxers come out from that kind of situation, because that's like their ticket out if they can succeed. And so we see a lot of good boxers coming from hard neighborhoods. Mike Tyson's a perfect example of that. And I've personally seen some Mexican boxers that have come from Mexico that I never saw their home, but I'm sure they come like from a shack. They got everything to lose and everything to gain by doing this. So it's their only one way out kind of thing. And then same thing with some of the really, really poor kids in Thailand, where they go into Muay Thai stables. So boxing. My point is, boxing to me is the foundation of 52 blocks, and they basically, that culture or subculture, they had to think, what can I use? What do I know? What do we know that we could use to protect ourselves? It's boxing. And then they go, well, but it's not a sport. It's obviously for the street. So for the street, we have to kind of change things a little bit. So they did. And that's where like spitting out the razor blade maybe came from. And then I would think that they also added the kung fu into it to evolve it more for the street. So when you start doing stuff like that, why kung fu? Why not another style? Why not another martial arts style? And my guess is because, with the African American, the black culture, Bruce Lee was, super cool, super fly, so to speak. Why? Because, he fought prejudice, you watch The Chinese Connection, he was about fighting that. And in his movies, he plays a minority coming into a foreign land and trying to make it, trying to survive. So I think, the blacks could relate to that. And, Bruce Lee's character in those movies, he never played like a super rich guy or super successful, person like that. No, he almost like the average Joe, other than his skills, Enter the Dragon, a little iffy, was he part of the monastery? It looked like it. So then he's definitely living like a monk. So he's not living like, grandiose or anything like that. In Way of the Dragon, aka Return of the Dragon, he's working for the restaurant. So you could just imagine, it's not a great salary. So, it's relatable, right? And the other thing was he had to say, hey, I'm going to teach whomever I want, regardless of race. He was the guy that did that. And he had black students. So, for the black community, this guy's a hero, of course. So, and, in Chinese Connection, he was the guy that destroyed the sign that said no dogs and Chinese allowed, right? So he fought racism. And even though, the Japanese were depicted as evil and the bad guys in Chinese Connection, I have been a minority here in the US. I, have been bullied and picked on, and I have experienced prejudice. So I could 100% relate to that, So he's my hero too in that sense. So I could totally understand. So anyway, and then I believe in the ghettos, and even down in Texas, in the valley where I'm from, I remember the Kung Fu theater that was shown on public TV. So, if you're watching that, because you can't afford, cable, you can't afford HBO or whatever. So you're watching, the public access channel or whatever. And then you're going to be looking forward to something like the Kung Fu theater, and they show the Kung Fu movies and stuff. It's just something that you grew up with. It's something that you're like, man, I want those skills. That is awesome, and you have like the Wu-Tang Clan and, the Ghostface Killer and all that. And I've been binge watching a lot of those movies recently. I don't know, there's just a nice charm about those, especially the ones pre-80s, okay? The ones that, like, I don't know what happened in the 80s. I guess it was after Bruce Lee. They're all, the quality went down, or they were trying to do something that they really didn't understand, unfortunately, because Bruce Lee passed away. They're trying to figure it out. But the 70s to me was I enjoyed that a lot more for some reason. But anyway, so I'm guessing that is the influence. So we're talking about boxing and we're talking about Kung Fu. Okay, that to me are the two big influences on 52 blocks, right? Style-wise, boxing and Kung Fu. Now, there's probably others, but I'm just saying, I feel like those two are huge. Now, in Kia, Kali, Escrima, Arnis, the reason why I feel dirty boxing is similar to that is because Filipino martial arts also has a strong Kung Fu influence. Now, whether that Kung Fu came from the Silat route, which Indonesia, so they changed the Kung Fu into their own thing. Kind of like the Thai boxers, they got Kung Fu and they changed it to their own version of it. So to me, Muay Thai is the Thai's version of Kung Fu, So over here, the Filipinos still, they had Kung Fu influence, but they also had a very strong fencing influence. So I would say the difference in similarities, the difference is, so 52 blocks is boxing and Kung Fu, and Kia, Kali Escrima Arnis, is fencing and Kung Fu. Okay, now if you examine fencing, to me, from fencing came boxing and savat. Okay, savat's more the kicking, but from fencing, let me say that again, from fencing comes boxing and savat. Just my opinion, okay? So in that sense, I can kind of see, to me, it's the same school of thought. The way they do boxing, the way you train in boxing, the way you train in savat, and the way you train in fencing, to me is all like a similar logic pattern. It's not like Kung Fu, it's not like karate or you know, some other style. It's not like capoeira, it's not like sambo or judo, it's not like that. Fencing, boxing, and savat to me are related. Okay, so to say if 52 blocks has boxing and Kung Fu influence, and you know, Kia has fencing and Kung Fu influence, I can see why they're going to be similar, if that makes sense. So anyway, just wanted to point that out to you guys. That's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.